This is a video I am super excited to be making because it is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. But I just unfortunately was never at a point in my life where I felt like I was comfortable and I felt like I was satisfied with where I was physically. But I'm very happy to finally say that after a long summer of hard work, discipline, and consistency, that I'm finally satisfied with where I am. For some context, I have always been somebody who has struggled with how I felt about my appearance and how I've looked. It kind of stems all the way back to late elementary school, middle school. I was a pretty overweight kid, and it was something that I was super self-conscious of. I was teased about it. The first time I ever lost the weight was probably like 8th grade. I started running. And then got into high school, I started running cross country and track. That made me lose the weight even more. But I was still just never at a point where I felt comfortable even like taking my shirt off at a pool or at the beach or anything like that. But throughout high school, my goal physically was never to look, a certain way. It was always to just be fast because I was super dedicated to cross country and track and running. So my primary goal was just be fast. I didn't really care about how I looked. But then coming out of high school, I didn't have that anymore, and I was okay with that. It's not a big deal. But the point is that physically, I didn't know where I wanted my goals to be because, I wasn't training to be fast anymore. And so I was still just kind of left back at square one where I wasn't really satisfied with how I looked and my appearance and, my physical build. But because I had done all that running and hadn't necessarily gained any weight, I had come up with this idea in my head that I can outwork a bad diet. But there's a reason this phrase is you can't outwork a bad diet. And that is something that I absolutely learned over the last few months, because once I dialed in my diet, I dialed in my other habits, I dialed in physically, I saw the most progression in my physique ever. Not even just in my physique, but also just my physical strength, my mental health, just all these aspects of my life drastically improved once I dialed in everything that I hadn't dialed in before. Prior to this summer, I had always thought that, I was making progress. It was just taking a while because I was going to the gym every day. I was getting good sleep. But the one thing that I'd never really locked in was my diet. I had always, again, excused it because I thought I could outwork it. But there was this phrase that I heard around 4 or 5 months ago, and the phrase is, success lies in the work that you are avoiding. And the one thing that I had been avoiding this whole time in my physical journey was locking in my diet. And of course, once I locked that in, I saw the most amount of progress and the most amount of success I had ever seen. And it was definitely not easy. I had never counted calories before, so getting adjusted to that was super, super difficult. And then obviously, I calculated my maintenance calories, then I went into a huge deficit. So the whole summer I was in an 800 calorie deficit. And then on top of that, I was training every day. I was making sure to hit 10,000 steps every single day. Of course, there were days that I didn't hit that 10,000 steps, but the one thing that I made sure I always hit, or I guess I never went over my allocated calories. That was the one thing, the one non-negotiable that I always hit. But when I started counting calories, that was when I realized, like, holy crap, this is why I haven't been seeing much progress over the last however many years, because I was avoiding the one thing that was holding me back, which was my diet. I had been pretty much eating whatever food that I wanted, whenever I wanted it, in the quantity that I wanted it, because I, had this impression and I was under the belief that I could outwork it because I go to the gym for an hour and a half, 2 hours every single day. Because I avoided really locking in my diet for so long, I never saw the success at the level that I wanted to. And so that's what I want you to take away from this video, is that success really does lie in the work that you are avoiding. It sounds kind of, obvious, but change won't happen unless you actually change something. In the same way, I've used this analogy before on this page, but if you cook chicken and rice every single day, that is what you are going to get every single day. You aren't going to get a different meal until you try a different ingredient. So I highly, highly, highly encourage you to take that time to really reflect and really humble yourself and identify what work you are avoiding. Because when you can identify that and you take that first step and you start doing that work, I promise you, you are going to see the results that you want to see, and you are going to achieve the things that you want to achieve. You know, I've always been somebody that has wanted abs. I've always wanted to feel comfortable taking my shirt off in public settings. And unfortunately, because I had chosen to avoid that one thing, my diet, for so long, was never at a stage in my life where I felt comfortable doing that. But I'm so happy to say, and I'm so proud to say, that I am finally at that point in my life. And it is such an amazing feeling, and that's why I really want, you know, you to take what I just said away from this video, because I want you to feel the exact same way that I feel about myself right now. I not only feel the best physically I've ever felt, I feel the best, you know, strength-wise, I feel the best mentally. I feel so much more energized because I'm just so happy and I'm so appreciative of the progress that I've made. It's not going to be easy. I kind of touched on it earlier, but my day-to-day over the summer was, you know, I had 1,750 calories to eat, hit 10,000 steps a day, go to the gym every single day. So I was burning around, I think, 2,600 calories a day. I did that, you know, in a maintenance calorie calculator, and I was operating on 1,700 calories a day. So do the math, that's 900 calorie deficit every single day for 2.5, 3 months. There were times that I went to bed hungry. There were times that I woke up and felt like I had no energy. There were times where I just felt so fatigued that I just wanted to break. I couldn't eat the foods that I was eating before. I was a huge fan of peanut butter pretzels, my absolutely favorite snack. Again, guys, also, I love peanut butter, but they were so calorie dense that I didn't have any over the summer. Same thing with dried mangoes. I love those. They're very good. Ton of sugar though, super calorie dense. Cut those out. For my birthday is in July, I didn't even have a birthday cake. I had 2 rice cakes, whipped cream, and some oatmeal on the side to make like a DIY birthday cake. But this was the first time in my life, except for maybe when I was like 1 or 2 years old, that I didn't have cake on my birthday. But if you were to ask me, was it worth it, and if I would do it again, my only response would be 100% absolutely. I am living the best quality of life I have ever lived right now. Again, I touched on this earlier, but I am just so satisfied in every single area of my life. And all I want is for, you know, whoever's watching this to feel the exact same way about yourself in your life. So take some time to really reflect and identify those areas of work that you are avoiding, and then just attack them and go all in. Because when you go all in on things that you haven't worked on before, you are going to see the most amount of progress you have ever seen in your life. If you made it to the end of this video, I really do appreciate it. Stay positive and stay safe.